Something about you feels so different. Yeah, you mess me up inside. It's like your energy was kissing my soul back to life, was living. Now it feels like every part of me is dying. Yeah, you're gone without a trace. You left me where no one can find me. There's no sign of life out here. I scream and it goes silent. I fight so hard, but I can't find my way out. Lost all dimension and time. All alone, think I'm losing my mind. And this goes down. And this goes down. And this goes down. Every message that I send you, you just leave them all unread. Now every part of me is hurting. Cross my heart, I don't deserve this. Loved you just for you to haunt me in the end. Yeah, you're gone without a trace. You left me where no one can find me. There's no sign of life out here. I scream and it goes silent. I fight so hard, but I can't find my way out. Lost all dimension and time. All alone, think I'm losing my mind. And this goes down. And this goes down.
Yeah, baby. Welcome in. Welcome in. Get a good food. Let's talk about these things that have been decades and decades in the paranormal. And we just point them out and say, hey, what about the Phillips experiment? What about Harry Price? Who said all those mediums were hoaxes and charlatans? Were they? Talk about it. Get you a cuppa. Get you a nice cup of coffee, nice proper cup of tea, and join myself and my guest tonight, who is Steve Stockton. He is arriving on a coach that is got a little held up. And that's okay. He can take his time and come in anytime he's ready. Welcome in everybody who did get here already, and welcome in. Welcome in. I see Miss Palmer. Good to have you here. Froze Moments. I see you got your mask back on. Good on you, sir. I see Mr. Ted and Lord Connor. I believe you were the first one in here, reminding everybody to sign up over there on Rumble. If you're on Facebook, hit the like, share it out. This is nothing extra spooky tonight. It's a little kooky, and there's definitely some deep questions, and a couple that I've been asking for a while and talking to Steve about that I'm going to bring up that I found very interesting, and that's the concept of the energy and how we perceive energy as far as a manifestation. If we see it in magical movies, or like the Sorcerer's Apprentice or something like that, or in what was that one? Was it The Coven? What the hell was the name of that doggone it. It was really good too. It was about 4 teenage witches. Can't remember, but I can see it as clear as day. And, they start throwing energy and you can see it. I've actually seen some people throw down some magic and you could see the energy. You absolutely could. I believe it's always there and it's our perception. So is it a manipulation of energy and that's all it is? And is it some kind of hypnosis or a play on our own minds? Or is it the entity or spirit or ghost, whatever, projecting into our head? There's so many questions. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't have a lot of answers. But what I can say is that over the past couple of decades, I've really been noticing a lot about this energy, the red eyes, the anger, that expression of emotion. And it's been coming up through different cryptids and stuff and things too, like Bigfoot and Dogman and ghosts, and even in some cases what we would consider other than that, like extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, maybe shapeshifters, you name it. So I think in this subject, we tend to throw a lot of things, like we say all the time, in a box, give it a label, right? And we also tend to do what I call headline gathering for information. What do I mean by that? Well, over time, it's changed from I read the book on, or I saw the documentary on, or I went to the lecture of. These kind of things have all gone into these very quick headline flashes, not even going as far as just saying memes, but headlines. And I think that, of course, started early back when you had your heralds on Herald Square, read all about it, extra, extra, such and such has happened. And if you didn't buy the paper and you didn't read the article, or you didn't get a firsthand account of somebody who did and actually gave you the information cleanly without having a lot of their own opinion put into it, you might have got the news, So if you think of the paranormal that way and you look back over, if I asked you to name some, crazy experiments and things that went down that might have had a paranormal, supernatural, metaphysical theory to them, you might name off, okay, Philadelphia experiment, very strange, very odd, multiple abduction things, Area 51, Aurora, Texas, the Bell thing in Pennsylvania, where the military, unmarked military was there like before most of the local cops. That kind of stuff, weird things. We can't really put our finger on them, but we know that there's something because we constantly keep hearing about it. The Bermuda Triangle, the Loch Ness Monster, fake or faux, fake or true. We hear about it. It's a staple. Name some other ones if you want to throw them down in the chat. The Patterson Gimlin film, things like that. The Travis Walton story. They're kind of staples. Now, if you're into investigating, understanding hauntings, trying to understand ghosts and what causes a haunting, what helps you get rid of a haunting, everybody goes in with a different vantage point, right? And you're looking back over these decades of these famous headline information packets, let's just call it that, whether it's about, like I said, a Bigfoot sighting or the Amityville Horror. You look back into it and go, wow, did any of this really happen? And if it did, why is this one part of the story matching up to an experience I had, for the reader or whoever's investigating or whoever's searching for information? So if we just go back and we grab headlines, like we've seen in so many things, Lizzie Borden. Well, did she really take an axe? First of all, she didn't give her mother 40 whacks. That's made up. But that's what we remember because of the song. I think it was 9 for the stepmother and another 11 for the dad, or somewhere around in those there. I have the information in my episodes on that story. But again, we just tend to, the headline, the parts that we remember. And tonight I mentioned last night that we went over pretty great detail, Philadelphia experiment. And I was trying to express my surprise. I don't know how it happened, but there's so much information out there. Listen, you could be in this 50 years and go back and study the story, something that you read in Fate magazine back in the 70s, and you recall the story, say about the, Squadron 19 that disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle and what happened and how spooky that was, or the ships that were found that, they still had breakfast on the table, but nobody was there. Nobody was left on board. It was so eerie, right? Those things used to blow my mind. I'm like, where did they go? But no sign of struggle. No, it just blows your mind. It makes your mind just explode as a kid, these things. And then you spend, 20, 30 years, say, with that in the back of your head, like, yeah, I recall that incident. I don't know in depth about it. I don't know, never researched that particular thing, but I know about it, a little bit. And the Philip experiment was one of those, because when you read out the findings of the Philip experiment, when you read out the say the mission statement of why they got together, why they chose 5 people who were like neither here nor there in the paranormal, supernatural, metaphysical. They weren't really, disbelievers or skeptics. They were just fence sitters, fence straddlers. Didn't really, not even that much. Maybe they didn't even know there was a fence, Did you get unsubscribed from the channels, from my channel? Oh, it's not me, honey. I promise you. It's not me. It's not me cutting off these lives in the middle of a show. That's not me. I'm not hitting buttons. If I do it, I'll tell you guys I did it. I have no problem going, look, I screwed up. Or I took somebody out, or accidentally put somebody in the sandbox, or blocked somebody because I dropped my phone. I will tell you. I have no problem telling you the truth and telling you when I messed up or got something wrong. Because I think you need to put all that stuff right out front, because here's the deal. When I watch somebody or I listen to somebody and they do that, I just, okay. I trust them that much more because, character and all. So anyway, headlines. So in the paranormal, you have these, like, just say staples that are always there, that most people in it has at least heard a little bit about. And if you read out the manifest, of what they wanted to achieve and what the experiment was about, and they thought that they could take a little bit of history that was accurate and then slightly askew some of the details and then make up this story about this guy named Philip, whatever. And he was married, and they had some in-depth stuff about him and his wife, and for the time. And I think this was like in the, I don't want to say for sure, but it was around in the 1500s or something. It went way back. And what else happened? Oh, he went into he did something. He met this chick. She was a kind of an exotic-y kind of gypsy, one of those. And he couldn't help himself, of course not. And he grabbed hold of her and snuck her back into town and set her up in this faraway cabin, and that he could skulk off to in the middle of the night and stuff like that. And she was all happy and everything was good, and it worked out for a while. This is a story they made up. This is not me. This is 1974, beehive having, polyester pantsuit wearing, women of the day, and they're making up this story about this poor ghost that doesn't even exist. I'm the crazy one. Anyway, so So anyhow, this guy, he's got this chick, stowed away in this cabin, this love shack, like B-52s, woo, love shack. And so what happens? Something goes awry. He's found out, and right away somehow she gets accused. Like somebody said she's a witch. Apparently that just throws everybody off, and everybody just gets spun around and just can't wait to burn somebody at the stake when somebody yells that. So apparently that's what happened, and he didn't stick up for her, and he denied her, and there she was, all flame, and he skulked away, and everybody wound up feeling sorry for him, which is kind of weird. And then he felt guilty, and of course now he's a ghost because he was guilty, because he felt guilty. So there's that. That's the story they made up about Philip. Now, this is the scientific experiment put out by parapsychologists in the year 1974 out of London. Hey, Unseen. Hey, definitely, baby. I got to DM you. I got to get all caught up. I've been up to here in rose stems, and my world's been quite the tornado for the past 3 weeks. So forgive me, and we will get together and get a good date. And again, anybody, how's the house in Kentucky, babe? I've been thinking about you all day since I saw all the flooding and everything. If you're having weather issues, if it's just plain cold, if it's just too much water, too much, I'm just so sorry. I mean, it's awful, the things that people are going through that they can't help. If you're out there and you're crazy and you're acting stupid and you just banging into the wall and you just whatever, that's your own damn fault. But weather and things like this, these stupid wildfires and these damn tornadoes and these mudslides and stuff, I'm just tired of them, and I just rebuke them all in the name of everybody there. So if you're suffering, you have my thoughts and blessings, and I'm so sorry, but hang in there. I think that there's a light coming down the tunnel. I can't promise you it's not a damn train, but at least I see it. Dickens was the master. Dickens, of like whistleblowing and twisting the tail? Or are you talking about my kitty, Mr. Dickens? Because that would apply to him as well. But I agree. Either one, I agree wholeheartedly, Chris. So this is the thing. Why am I dragging this through the mud? I don't mean to. I'm not trying to point it out because it's certainly not the only one out there. But I think I'm focusing on this one. Oh, there's Steve. Okay, Steve, get in here. I didn't see you, sweetheart. You ready, baby? One minute, or is that a thumbs up or a 1 minute? Okay, I couldn't tell. All right, it's new glasses.
Yeah, I've been sitting here for about 15 minutes just listening to you. That's okay. I told you I'd be a little late. Yeah, you said that's not 1 minute. This is had a kid tell me this in school one time. This is if you take your middle finger and put it like a timeout, that's wait a effing minute. That's
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that one. That wasn't part of the Native American Sign Language I was taught by my granny, but I'll throw it up in there.
I was ready.
Did you catch anything I was saying? Steve Stockton, everybody. We're just going to carry on.
How y'all doing?
Say hi to everybody.
To see you.
Eric's
hey, Chris. Hanging
is on the highest hill in town. Okay. Eric's okay.
Hey,
The night
Renise,
house is on the hill.
Rose
Thank
Moments,
God.
RP Scotts. It's got a lot of people here.
Hug garage for me, sweetheart.
And I've got a Valentine picture of Holden there that
I got to see it.
He wants you to see.
Look at this bad boy. Oh, my goodness.
Does he not look like a baby model or something?
My funny Valentine. Look at him. And he's sweet. Hi, baby. Hi, baby.
He's watching
he looks
in the
good
other
in
room
black, Steve. I'm
while he's
telling
taking
you what.
The bottle.
That babies look good in black.
Yeah, I got the little overalls, the shirt, the bow tie. He's got it going on there.
It just seems like yesterday, my son, my oldest, was this size, and he had a tuxedo with the tails and the black bow tie and the white, it was like a onesie you put on it. But oh my gosh, it was just adorable. It seems like yesterday. Look at how adorable. Look at this. Look at that baby. Hi, sweetheart. You lucky little thing. My goodness. Is he listening to good stories at night, Steve?
Oh yeah, I've written some that are special just for him. I'll probably release those at one point, and I'm not doing like the little kids' tale. These are more like they're
Dragons and
they're stories, bedtime stories,
Puff the
but
Magic
adults can
Dragon.
listen to them and enjoy them. That way, I'm hoping he'll have an advanced
Write them
vocabulary like
down.
I did
Record them. Write
when
them
I was a
down.
kid. I didn't like those little nursery rhyme stories. I liked, older fare. So
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
gonna try the same thing with him and see if he's
Me
starting to
too.
babble a lot. Just started the last couple of days, and he'll be this Thursday will be 24 weeks old. So he's
He's
coming up
top hat.
on 6 months. Yeah, it needs a top hat and a little cane or something there to
Yep, putting on the
walking stick.
Ritz. Too stinking cute. Amen. Chris is cute. Ah, there's to hold in. Yep, he has gotten big. How old is he now? It's almost 6 months, right?
Yeah, it'll be Thursday will be 24 weeks, and then the 5th of March it'll be 6 months.
My goodness. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. So, that being said, did you pick up anything in that 15 minutes you was lurking in the green room and I was just going slap the hell off?
Just you're talking about the Philip experiment, and it's
But
one of
see,
those things. A hoax is a hoax, and there's probably more hoaxes when it comes to the paranormal than there are cases that have actually been looked into in the right
so
way.
true.
And that's just the nature of the business. People, um, okay, going back to like P.T. Barnum, and even before that, there's a sucker born every minute and two to take him.
The
So
mermaid that was had a
yeah,
monkey head
the
on it and
Fiji
the fish
mermaid, it was a
tail.
shaved monkey with a fish tail sewn on it. So,
Yeah,
but people saw it. There it
yeah,
is. It's a Fiji
yeah.
mermaid. It
Wolf
really exists.
boy.
But
I mean, just all the different stuff. I mean, we almost knew going in, but see, with the Philip experiment, I don't want to be unfair. I'm not really calling it a hoax. What I'm saying about it is when I read about it in writing, with names from the parapsychology department and, these different, psychological and scientific names and departments that were all involved, and then they got a hold of these five people. I'm getting an echo. You get an echo? They
I
got
may
these
be too
five
close to
people
the.
that were
I turn my
they weren't
volume down a little
they
bit.
were kind of fence sitters, right? So they're not really one side or the other, and they just went in, and it seemed like what they did was they made up a story about this guy who did exist or didn't exist. I know some of the facts they brought in were actual historic facts, and then they skewed them a little so they would know if the ghost that was coming through was really telling them the truth or not. Kind of like what cop does when he's giving you the shit they got on you when you're in interrogation. Similar, okay? And then they got together and through a series of table tipping seances, which is similar, but definitely not the same as any table tipping I've ever been involved in, because they're basically just asking it, knock on the table. They're taking, I guess, one for yes, twice for no kind of deal. And they're only dealing with the movement of the table and these little knocks. Now, the knocks seem to be coming from within the table, which is a very interesting point to all this. And the table's definitely moving, and I'm not even slightly saying that they're doing it. The thing I'm focusing on is that when you read about this experiment on paper, and then you read about it, how it's been described through our decades, because it happened in 74, so at least a couple. And other podcasts are doing it, and they're talking about the Philip experiment, and you can conjure up a ghost, which proved that, ghosts are just a manifestation of your thoughts and what you put out there. And they proved it through extensive clinical study that I'm picturing white coats and name badges and stuff. You know what I mean? When you say clinical study and you say university, you kind of picture something and hold some substance in your mind where you go, oh, well, I guess if they did a study that it's possible for people to get together and thought create a tulpa, which I don't disagree with. What I disagree with was giving it so much substance when I actually saw it in motion, Steve. And I'm like, seriously? This is what for years we've been putting any kind of one way or another evidence based on this experiment. And I'm going to show you 3 minutes. I've never had the privilege before, have you, to get to see actual footage of the clinical.
No, I've heard about it, but I've never seen it. And I think the way you're reacting there, it must be amazing with polyester pantsuits and beehives or whatever they wore then.
I could not believe it. I guess it was Saturday afternoon. Finally, winding down, and I was making corsages, and I was daddy-daughter dance right after Valentine's Day. The amount of corsages that I made, I'm telling you. So, but I get at work, I get to watch, and do some research. So I'm sitting there with my headphones and I'm watching this. And I found some rare footage, found footage. The Philip experiment. I'm like, oh hell, this is gonna be great. And I'm thinking like the old Harry Price when he was doing the Borley. You remember that, Steve, where he hired all these college, they're all sitting around. It was very precise and he was very on it, And I pull this up and I'm like, I can't believe it. So without further ado, if you would like to see a few minutes of this, I'd like to show you, Steve. And you give me your honest impression on what you think that this proved or disproved about about anything.
Have you seen Dorothea lately? No. Would you like to see Dorothea lately? No. Didn't you love Dorothea in your time? No. That was too. Yes, we need them louder. Do it louder. Did you like Dorothea? I do, Philip. Come on. There are no better option than that. Come on. They want you to move before they want you to
First of all, if I was Philip, I would already by now.
He loves his beer, perhaps. Philip, if you perform, you should have a nice big pint of beer. Would you like that? Good.
Yes, now that was the loudest rap of the evening.
Yes, he loves beer.
This is when they took it on tour to all the shows on TV.
Is that Mike Douglas or who is it?
I don't know who it is, Merv Griffin or somebody. I don't know. To me, this is ghost torture, Steve. I'm in protest for Philip's feelings. I really am. Whoever poor Philip is.
Let's hear you.
There?
Yeah, there's the rap. Now, all hands are visible. Let's just dwell on this point. All hands are visible at this point, yet the raps are clearly coming from, it would appear, certainly from within that table. Let's try it again. Philip, give us a good, loud, clear rap.
For one bottle of beer. Louder than that.
Come on, louder, Philip.
Louder for two.
Come on, Philip.
Philip, if you want a bottle of beer, rap loudly.
Louder, Philip.
Come on, Philip, louder. Here comes the microphone.
It has to be louder, Alan won't buy it.
Come on, Philip.
Come on.
What?
Right,
I didn't hear
right under the microphone, Philip.
Right here, Phil. Right here.
Keep your
Right here.
hands up.
No, he's doing it over in
Come on,
that corner.
come on,
Doing
Philip,
that
louder
corner. Come
and
on,
louder.
Philip. Louder.
That's oh, good.
Now, Steve,
It didn't look very clinical to me.
this is what I'm saying. So basically, from beginning to end, now they started to, I I think pretty much tape everything. I think everything was taped. So this looked to me a lot like, it reminded me a lot like when Sightings went to the Sally house and the poor guy's sitting there with his shirt off getting scratched and they're all, cameras were coming in. You know, I don't think anybody really knows how to act when something like this is going on. They seem to be having a wonderful time. I have absolutely nothing against any of the people in the room. I think that there was probably something going on with the table, not disputing that. Something was moving it. Something was wrapping from inside. My dispute is that this experiment has always been put off as a I don't want to say definitive, might be too strong, but definitely a strong experiment based on thought form, tulpa projection, that you could create a ghost out of thin air just by suggesting it and giving it a backstory. Okay, that's my assumption from that experiment. Similar to yours, correct? Because we've talked about this experiment thing before. And we've talked about it before. I can remember doing it 10 years ago. And we were talking about leaning on this experiment as a form of kind of in the yes box for tulpas existing. And we spoke about, the authors that write so deeply that their characters come to life, the Shadow being one of them, with what's the
Cabin 13.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cabin 22.
Cabin 22, same thing with Skeet and some of the other that came. Believe me, I swear Ezra was in my kitchen one night. I mean, it's not fun, You think it might be cool, but you look up and go, man, did I just see what I thought I saw? So I can imagine how it is for people. And I'm all for that. I think that's absolutely possible, that you could create a tulpa and enough people, thought forms, especially a group of people. My point is, there is nothing in this that convinces me that they're talking to this thing that they created. I personally think that they just conjured up enough energy and enough light being together, focused with their little songs and everything else, that they picked up the first stray hitchhiking ghost that went by and go, what's happening over here?
A jumper, just like, hey, what are those people doing? Right. I'm going to have some fun with them. And then
it's like, some ghost walking down the street and there's a sign that says free lunch. So you come on in, and now the next thing this poor thing, especially if it's weak-minded or confused or anything like that, or just in a terrible state, because you wouldn't be a wandering ghost if you weren't. Now the poor thing thinks its name is Philip, and he got his girlfriend burnt at the stake.
Yeah. Or he's just playing along. He's like, okay, whatever you say. That's look at them. They'd be it'd be fun to mess with those people.
It's just too funny. And it's one of those things where I think you have to be careful, the eggs you're putting in your paranormal basket, it's like, you can't just, because it's a famous name or a famous TV show, or, it's the ghost hunter with the most followers on Insta, whatever, that kind of thing. I think you really need to dig down and see, okay, what was the experiment? What actually went on? Because to me, like Steve said, didn't look very clinical.
Yeah.
And it doesn't prove.
My dad worked at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. I'm familiar with what, that setting looks like, with the lab coats and the instrumentation and the devices for measuring and this, that, and the other. That was just a bunch of goofs in polyester pantsuits and leisure suits or whatever they had on there.
Absolutely. And
I didn't see anything clinical. I didn't see anything. They were just having fun. It looked like a bridge party without the bridge,
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying anything about like table tipping isn't for real. I've been in the room with table tipping. It's absolutely a real thing. I think something was going on there, but to say that is the the definitive experiment on creating tulpas, I think that we talked about at the time. The only way they were getting it out is to have things like, if they wrote up a paper on it, if somebody did a story on it, if they put a book out on it, or if they were on a TV show like this, to get the word out. You go back to Harry Price's time, he had a little bit of that too. I watched a couple of newsreels today of Harry Price that didn't even have any music or anything with him. They were just a real silent, a silent film, almost like a newsreel that they put in between the movies back in the day. But he was a very big showman as far as bringing people to show crowds in the street magic and pull little shows here and there to promote himself and the things that he was doing and trying to show hoaxes and charlatans and things like that, but also promoted who he thought was the real one. In this case, I don't know what started the whole idea, but I believe what the Kickstarter on this whole experiment thing was the fact that they thought that, a group of people who didn't have an agenda coming in and just trying to talk to this ghost and create through group thought an entity. And here it is. And because it's banging on the table is this Philip? Sure. I'm whoever you say you are, scream some more because, I get energy or whatever it's thinking, or it's just doing what it's told or thinks it's getting help. When I start getting into that, I start getting mad because I think it's ghost abuse and it's a thing, and if it's just a person, or the essence left over of this person or left behind. So I just don't think it's a definitive thing. But to be fair, I think these people were very serious. And just to give you both sides of it, I'm going to pull up the lady that was in charge. Her husband was the head parapsychologist. This is her explaining what just went on stage to the host of that show. And it's just a few minutes, but it at least explains from their point of view. Now, when you hear it like this, if you hadn't seen what you saw, and you hear her explain it, makes perfect sense, and it sounds very, very scientific. But then when you see it in real life, it's just complete, wackadoodle. So you be the judge. Your mileage may vary, right, Steve?
Absolutely.
It could happen. So, and then we can get into Slender Man and some other tulpas. But here's her explaining.
My guest on Extra Special People is Iris Owen of the Toronto Society for Psychical Research. And Iris, that must be just about the wildest sequence ever seen on television. A group of grown people with a table bouncing around and answering questions. But let's get serious now. It's a marvelous party game, having a talking table, but there's something deeper than that involved. What are the implications of this Philip experiment?
Well, of course, as you say, Alan, it is a serious scientific experiment. And there are two aspects of it that are important. First, the part that is of interest to the physicists. How does a combined thought from a group of people transform itself into something that can produce a physical effect, such as a noise or a table movement?
Mm-hmm. I should say that to me, these pings from within the table are the most singular thing about the phenomenon. And I have put my hand on the table more than once and felt the vibration, the pulsation directly under it.
Yes, it is a most extraordinary
thing. Now, what's
thing.
the second thing?
The second thing, of course, is of interest to psychologists. The psychological background of a group of people getting themselves into a state of mind where they can, in fact, share a common thought and produce these things.
For one thing, you have to be in a kind of childlike frame of mind, don't you?
We describe it as a psychological skill, and it's learnt just as in the same way that when you're learning to play the piano, you have to start with the scales and go all the way through until you can play something in the nature of classical music. This is a psychological skill that we learn in this way. And this is why it doesn't happen as often as one would think it.
Well, maybe we'll have some more imaginary ghosts around. Iris Owen, it's been marvelous having you on the program. And we will be back again with more Extra Special People, and we'll be talking to interesting folks who inhabit that shadowy world that lies on the border between science and superstition, the known and the unknown. They're all unusual. They're all extra special.
Name that movie. What music is that movie from?
It's not The Exorcist, is it?
It's The Exorcist.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tubular Bells, Mike Oldfield.
Yep. You just hear that and just creepy. I see her coming down the stairs backwards. I think that was one of the scariest parts of that whole daggum movie. It was rough back in the 70s. We had some good ones. Rosemary's Baby, Exorcist, Amityville Horror, all these came out all at once. But this experiment came out at the same time. And when you hear her explain it, If you just heard her explain it, it makes complete sense. And I believe in the theory. I just think that it's the same as any time you go into a place or you're trying to do an investigation. All we can really do is best guess, and unless you have several different sensitives there that are all coming up with who they think this ghost is, and are we receiving correct information when we're asking questions? Is it lying to us? I mean, wasn't it you said that, Steve, when, like, it's like answering a phone and you don't know who you're talking to, and why would you trust the person on the other end telling you the truth or who they say they are? And
yeah,
it didn't prove anything in that case, whether you could raise a tulpa or not. They probably just called it, or it could have been somebody, a ghost that was following them and said, hey, here's my chance to shine. I'm going to start banging on this damn table.
Yeah.
1,000 things. 1,000 things. So there's that. And I think the moral to the story, if there is one, is just be careful in what you look back and use as proof of anything, because in this genre, it's near impossible to prove a doggone thing. Whether we talked last week, Steve, about looking at videos. I mean, we're in trouble with AI, and the only way I could look to approach it is kind of like if you go back to your natural instincts and you observe animals. It's going to sound crazy, but have you ever seen a cat or a dog go up to something in the yard and smell it to see if it's almost like they're smelling to see if there's life there. Their whole body changes, their muscles and everything else, when they go up on something, approaching something that is, I hate to say it, but fresh dead. If you've ever watched a cat, chase a mouse or something else, their body changes when they realize that there's no life there. And it stops becoming a threat. They change. And I think that we can do the same thing when you're looking at a video. Close your eyes and see if you feel the energy shift. And last night I talked about, you could sit inside and look out a window at a bird feeder and just get a baseline of how the energy around you feels, and then close your eyes and see if you can tell when a bird lands in that feeder, because the energy changed ever so slightly. And the more you practice that, you can do stuff like, you're in an office, you can tell when somebody's coming down the hall. You're not hearing it, you're feeling it change. You know what I mean, Steve? What do you call that? Because
I don't know. It's just like when you're in a room and you can tell somebody's looking at you, and you turn around and there they are, they're staring right at you. There's some sort of innate sense that we have to detect stuff like that. And I think it goes back to our animalistic nature, where we had to be hyper aware of everything, and we've lost a lot of that. It's been educated and trained out of us, but I think some of us still have it from one degree
I think it's true. And the more we exercise it, the stronger it's going to get. It's the same thing as like if you're going down, you could do it with a lot of different things. If you get a suggestion, throw it in the chat. But you can also do it if you're just, you're at home and you can almost feel. I know I had a dog that could tell the certain cars were coming home before they ever got, they're like a mile away. You know what I mean? And you can tell their body language starts changing. Maybe their tail starts wagging. They hadn't got up and looked to the window yet, but it's coming, and I think we can practice that a lot when we do those things. Even if you're just, you're at home and somebody's fixing to come to the door, or somebody's come into the room. And it's the same thing as we talk about in haunted houses, where you just know that something came into the room. The energy changed. I think we can use that on any kind of electronics as far as video, because I can feel it when there's a certain life to it. Like I said, that with a cat going up to a dead mouse or something along those lines, you can feel the life in it, the energy in it, even through the electronics. And I think that's something, if we practice that, will be a little bit better. Here's a great example. This new AI that's coming out. This is what made me start thinking about all this. I had somebody that was sending me these AI. Something they were interested in was like the America's Got Talent or whatever, and these kids coming out and singing, and they're so great and all this. And the minute they come out, they thought it was real. They had no question whatsoever. And I looked at it, and the minute the kid walked out, I felt no life in it. There was no soul there. There was no life energy coming off of this thing in this video. And that's when I thought to tell you about it, because we're missing a big part of something we all get a lot of pleasure from, like watching Ghost Caught on Tape, or look at this situation, your Nuke's Top 5 and things like that, or just trying to help a friend discern whether or not they've got a ghost on the Ring camera or whatever it may be. So if we can try to use that tool and exercise it a little bit, I think we come up with some really good ways of exercising that part of what Steve said. It's stuff we've been born with. It's inherent, This is something that if we were out in the wild, this would be extremely honed. We'd be able to tell when somebody was about to walk up on the cave or predator was coming. You could feel the shift in the energy a little bit easier. So, but, well, that's on that one. And I figured, it was absolutely worth bringing it up, because with as much as I've heard it come up in the paranormal and discussions and seen it on podcasts and everything else, now you can look at a podcast that comes in and treats the Philip experiment like some deep, dark, it's just, I look at some of that and I'm going, what are they talking about? It's not, but it is what it is, and again, over time, it's been blown up and changed, I think, and the perception of it has been exaggerated. That's what it is. You saw it with your own eyes. Boom. You be the judge. Right, Steve?
Yep.
All right. So last night we talked a little bit about thought forms. I don't know if you feel like reading, but for people who weren't here last night, would you like to take a shot at a couple of cards?
Absolutely. Thought forms. The term thought form describes the concept of an entity created directly and exclusively by the mind, whether unconsciously or consciously, which appears to develop a life of its own as an independent agent in the real world, perceptible to other people. The belief in thought forms is the basis of several related concepts: tulpa in Tibet, puka in Germanic and Celtic cultures, and jinn or jinn in Arabic cultures.
Yep. So I think last night we talked a little bit about the jinn. And again, I think that with the jinn, you have to understand that there's many different types. And even in here, it says basically on what they're believing. So I feel like the jinn is just like anything else. You've got good and bad. And there apparently are rules, Steve. So you've got the jinn, and then you've got the puka. And this is the one that you and I have talked about before, Steve, that's in the movie Harvey with Jimmy Stewart. It's a great movie. But now pukas can be mischievous, trickster kind of things, but I've heard that they can be downright dangerous too. And I think that goes with all of these things. In Midsummer Night Dreams, we hit all that. Okay, this is where I wanted to go. Right here. I'm always blown away, and Steve knows this, by when we dig back 100 years. We've done this 100 times, probably 100 times, Steve. Dug back and gone way back to what were they talking about, long ago, and did they have any of the same ideas about the paranormal, supernatural, metaphysical that we do? Well, it just so happens that this book was written in 1905. And this book talks an awful lot about thought forms. It talks about basically what the Philip experiment, I thought, was about, was you could create a thought form, what we spoke about last night as far as that poltergeist energy, or something that, like we talk about in the Lizzie Borden house and many others, where there's almost like this PK energy that is just a ball of all the energy that's been in there before and the emotions, and it's almost created its own life form. It talks about that, and it talks about something else that Steve and I have talked about for a while, I think since I went to Gettysburg and I got the picture of the pink mist that went across the wheat field. All the other pictures in succession, I had taken probably 9 in a circle. And it was the only one that across that field there was like a pink fog, and I can probably pull it up and show it to you. So I started digging into color. You remember that, Steve? We started talking about, we had Kevin Keller on here, and we were talking about colored orbs and the meaning of it. We started bringing in and talking about the red eyes of anger and a ghost, like the one I saw in the farmhouse. And then we start hearing stories about Bigfoot and dogmen with the red eyes when they were angry, or the orange, or and it wasn't just eye shine. It's a different thing. It went with the emotion that the people were picking up, the witness, the experiencer. So this touches on the colors, Steve. And I thought it was so interesting to go back to 1905. Now, when they wrote the book, this is what Anne Besant wrote about why they wrote the book and why they did all the studies that they did. Do you want to catch this one, Steve?
Sure. It is our earnest hope, as it is our belief, that this little book will serve as a striking moral lesson to every reader, making him realize the nature and power of his thoughts, acting as a stimulus to the noble, a curb on the base. With this belief and hope, we send it on its way. Annie Besant.
Isn't that nice? Okay,
yeah, nice quote.
Yeah. So now 1905. Okay. Now, so again, just like the people in the Phillips experiment in 74 got together, and they're just trying to understand what's going on, and they're, we've also had we've done shows on people getting together to try to have trance mediums speaking to people on the other side that were stuck, and had people coming from visitation that had crossed over to help these spirits cross over. I mean, it's an amazing subject. There's so many deep things here to study, but to think that in 1905 these people got together and were picking up on the same things that we're still picking up on an individual basis, in groups, in different shows that we're watching, in different studies that we're involved in, in just paranormal research. And to go back in 1905 and find out that they had stuff in depth this much, it blew my mind. So they dug very deep on color. And the color and the feelings that go with the colors, they based on aura and what they were seeing. They used multiple psychics, multiple mediums. This was a very good in-depth study in 1905, and it was based on another book, and they speak of it here, and this another study, and it holds up just as strong today, Steve. So it goes with your common sense, where we think that we see anger and red eyes, or if we feel that kind of energy, like maybe in an orb. You see a lot of the white and the blue and greens and yellows and things like that. And in some cases, pinks and purples. But when you start looking for this, you'll see it a lot more in the paranormal. And this still matches up. So if you ever need a guide, you can go back and you can look up this book. And I'll give you the cover of it right here. But I wanted to read just this to you. Is this too small for you, Steve? Can you see it?
No, I can see it.
Okay.
The meanings of colors. The authors write that they, like many theosophists, oh boy, that's an easy one to say.
I know.
Theosophists are convinced that thoughts are things, and the task of their book is to help the reader understand this. The frontispiece of this book contains a table, quote, the meanings of colors, quote, of thought forms and human aura associated with feelings and emotions, beginning with high spirituality, which is the light blue in the top corner there on the left, and ending by malice, the black in the lower right corner, 25 colors in all. So from blue to black, there you go.
I saw this, and all of my paranormal jimmies started to rattle. I was just like, what? So I went and I looked up in the archives, and I found the book. And let me see if I can pull it up here so y'all can see it. It's free. You can get the ebook. This is it right here. Now, can you see when I move it like that? Does that move for you, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's called Thought Forms by Anne Besant and C.W. Ledbetter. And it was written in 1905. The first printed was 1901. You can see it right there. And in there, they have the chart. And it blew my mind. And the way it matches up to what I already thought was just a double whammy for me because it matches, listening to people. Now I can see auras sometimes. With me personally, what happens to me is if I'm shown an aura, I'm supposed to understand something about that person, and I'm probably getting something from their spirit guides connecting with mine. It's the best I can explain it, but I'm supposed to see it for a certain reason. And people misunderstand auras, and I'm no expert, but I can tell you this. I had people come up to me and say stuff like, I bumped into a sensitive or a medium or a psychic or whatever, and they told me that my aura was very green. And I think, oh, that's great. If they're happy about it, I'm just going to let them bebop on. Why stop them? But the thing is your aura changes with your character, with your mood, with your health, with your, and there's certain layers to your aura. What's closer to you is you're more spiritual. And then as it goes out, it's more like the environment's effect on you. It makes perfect sense. If you think about it, and your auras change, like I said, with your emotions and your mood and what you're going through at the time. And it's incredible that they've pulled all that together. And here we go from 1901 to 2025. It still matches up. Your angry Sasquatch still has, red energy eyes coming at you, or your dog man, or your, angry ghost, or your confused ghost. And each one of these, the way it's written, it starts here in the top. So you see this number 1 square that kind of looks a little more like light violet to me. It goes across. That's high spirituality. And then you look at different colors that go through. It all goes across. It goes by the ones, and then it goes down. So it's very easy to read. And like Steve said, the bottom here being the black is the malice. It's just complete emptiness. And it's just amazing the way it all fits.
Of all color.
Devoid of all color. Yeah. And emotion. And it's not even, there's a mixture where you have your angry mixed with the black. And, I think this could really be very beneficial to anybody that is, studying the paranormal investigation. If you can see auras and you're trying to understand them, if you're seeing orbs and you're trying to understand what type of an entity you're dealing with, because I've seen multiple colored orbs. If you're like me and you got pictures and there's a mist in there and you wanted to go back and see. So let's look at the color of mist that I got. Okay. So if I went in here, the mist in my picture, and give or take for differentials and cameras and computers and all that, it would have to be in the purple rose, somewhere in here, between the purple and the pink. So if I went back and I get rid of this, and I see if I can pull that up. Let me see. Steve, isn't this amazing, though? To think that.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of those mood rings. Remember those back in the 70s? And
yeah.
Again, that was, that was kind of a hokey pseudoscience thing, but they did change colors depending on your mood, apparently.
Right. And you wonder, we're real big on origin stuff, like where did it come from? I mean, I was tickled pink when I heard about Vincent Price and they were using the term chew gum and walk at the same time. Well, that came out because they couldn't get any actors to play gangsters and chew gum and walk at the same time, because they thought that gangsters, that was a big thing. They chewed a lot of gum, and they had certain, body language and stuff that they did, and they couldn't get actors to do it. It was funny. And Vincent Price could, and that's why he got the part. So I just think it's so funny. But the origin of the color, of course, it would have to be based on, they're seeing the aura. They know this person is angry, and the color changes, and they go, oh, red, mixed with orange, and some brown or whatever. You have to read this book if you're interested in this. It's amazing the way they explain it. But it's still true today because it's fact. That's what I'm believing. Because I've got a mist in Gettysburg in a wheat field that's matching up to what they expressed was that color. And I have it here on a card, I think. I think I do. So here is a little bit of a breakdown on the colors. And when it gets to the the pink, you'll understand what I mean, the rose color. Go ahead, Steve, if you want.
The table of colors given has already been thoroughly described in the book Man, Visible and Invisible, and the meaning to be attached to them is just the same in the thought form as in the body of which it is evolved. For the sake of those who have not at hand the full description given in the book just mentioned, it will be well to state that black means hatred and malice. Red of all shades, from lurid red, brick red to brilliant scarlet, indicates anger. Brutal anger will show us flashes of lurid red from dark brown cloud. Green seems always to denote adaptability. Affection expresses itself in all shades of crimson and rose. A full clear carmine means a strong, healthy affection of normal type, while pure pale rose marks the absolutely unselfish love, which is possibly only to high natures. You're muted, Cisco.
I was over here looking for the picture and I can't find it, but what it was like a hot pink mist, kind of like the T-Mobile color that they use now. It's almost like a magenta. So when I looked up, I had to dig at that time. What are these colors? Why am I getting? Because I've seen green mists, I've seen gray, I've seen all shades of black, and I've seen white. But I'd never seen one that had that much color in it, because it was literally like somebody took a fog machine and a hot pink gel light and just shined it across this field. And when I dug around, it took me a long time to find it. It came up that pink was love, accommodating, peace, a calmness with humanity and all this. I'm like, where are they getting? Where's the rule book for this? So I keep digging, going back and back and back to see when was the earliest mention of colors and the paranormal and the supernatural. And I'm not saying that 1901 is it, but boy, it's substantial. And it made me feel great to know that I walked onto that field trying to bring some peace and some calmness to it. And I sang Amazing Grace. And when I was done, I asked for permission to take the pictures. And that's when I got the fog. I didn't see it till I was halfway home on my phone. Like you always hear, didn't catch it till they were looking at the film later, And that actually happened. And then to find out that I had made a difference, that's when I knew I had to get the word out that putting out energy and putting out intent made a huge difference to the dead. And, if you want to make somebody you care about feel better or do better or have better, more energy, then definitely it makes a difference, because these were total strangers, ghosts been wandering that field for 150 years, and some stranger comes up there and does a half-baked version of Amazing Grace and I get pink fog. What would you get if you went out there and you really laid some love and light down on that battlefield? Could you send some of them into the light? I bet you could. So I don't think there's a bit of fakeness about that. I thought that was wonderful. The book, again, is Thought Forms, and you can get it free, and you can read the whole ebook on archives.gov. So I suggest if you're interested in it, it's a great read. So there you go, Steve. How about that?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And they've known this for, over 100 years, 120 years or something when the book was published. And
it's still good because it's right.
It's still good information and not something you hear every day or any day, really.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of other things that connect with it too. Within the book, there's something else that's very interesting. I don't know if you've ever experienced it when you're meditating or you're grounding. Everybody does it different when you're fire gazing or something along those lines. If you've got your eyes closed and you're meditating, the first thing I try to do is see the light of the candle with my eyes closed, because it helps me focus. It's just a trick I use. And I don't know if other people get visions or if you see symbols, but they have a whole chapter of symbols that you see when you meditate that says that your guides are sending you certain information, and your higher self is sending you information, and it's what you're connecting into. It's very interesting. So that's in that book too. And again, free. So who doesn't like free? Everybody's trying to save money and you're still trying to, get information. Books are still good things to have, people. How about some fun? I've got a little bit of somebody I just can't get enough of, and that's Harry Price. Now, I've got a little bit on him. We've seen it before. It's a little newsreel, and it's just so amazing that we can watch this. Let me see. And I'm going to go get some hot water for my tea. How are you doing, Steve? You need to go get you some coffee, or?
I need to go return my coffee to the earth, but I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let me see if I can pull this up. Is that it? Where is it? Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. I have got this. We'll put this on. Now, this is a little introduction to Harry. And if I can find that newsreel, I'll pull it up in between. But one of my favorite stories about Harry is not just how he started and what he was trying to do and how he was trying to find the fakes. And he was very into the tricks and the puzzles and the magic of it too. He was kind of a little bit of a magician, but just kind of like Houdini. And he was very popular in the early 30s going through. He was around for a lot of decades. But one of my favorite was the talking mongoose. So I've got that at the end. So there's something to look forward to. Here we go. I'm going to go get some hot water. We'll be right back.
Before the X-Files, before Uri Geller had even bent a spoon or aliens had landed on Roswell, Britain had its own investigator of the supernatural. He was a self-appointed professor of the paranormal, making a handsome living out of the weird and the bizarre. His controversial claims entranced the public, angered the skeptics, and turned him from a non-entity into an international celebrity. His name was Harry Price. Yes, Harry Price. And this is his story. And you are going to love it.
Harry Price was the most famous psychic investigator of the 1930s. This was an era when stories of ghosts and psychics were making headlines. There was the Devil Girl of Romania, Borley Rectory, the most famous haunted house in England, and of course Jeff the Talking Mongoose.
I could kill you, you know. Yeah. Kill you. Right where you're at.
Harry Price is, in many ways, my hero, because he was out there doing the really fascinating work, making psychical research enormously colourful, working with some of the world's greatest mediums, some of the world's greatest psychics, really trying to figure out what was going on.
Harry Price had, of course, a huge interest in the paranormal. He was a member of the Society of Psychical Research, wasn't too impressed with the progress they were making, so in 1926, he opened his own laboratory.
If a man comes to us and says that he can produce abnormal phenomena, then we test him by instrumental means.
With his national laboratory, Price wanted to find out what was going on. There you had mediums and psychics claiming these amazing abilities, and he wanted to find the answers. Was it really possible to contact the dead?
Psychical research is a science and is rapidly becoming an exact science. Its object is to ascertain by exact experimental methods how far the alleged phenomena of the seance room can be brought into line with normality.
Harry Price's career as a ghost hunter began in the 1920s when mysteries like telepathy, hauntings, and spirit seances were hardly ever out of the headlines. Spiritualism was enjoying a revival in the aftermath of World War I and 1 million dead soldiers. Mediums acted as intermediaries between this life and the next. The debate raged. Was it really possible to talk to the dead? And more importantly, would the dead answer back? Harry Price, who was something of an amateur scientist, decided there was only one way to find out. He would put the mediums to the test.
The fundamental trick of a medium is to convince the audience that you need to have dim lights or the lights off in order to attract the spirits. Of course, once you switch off the lights, do anything you want, really.
Your imagination takes flight in the dark. You know, I've sort of done this myself with a group of people. You become very aware that even a tiny creak or any anything from the room gets interpreted and exaggerated, and you very easily believe that supernatural events are taking place.
They would generally be sat down in a seance situation and be tied down. The reason they had to be tied down is because things were being thrown around the rooms and objects were being moved, and they wanted to prove the fact that they weren't doing it. Well, the obvious thing is that they were escapologists, that they could escape from their bonds and they were able to do that type of thing.
Harry designed all kinds of ingenious equipment to help in his quest for truth, and he designed carefully controlled situations in which to monitor the mediums. All these controls had one aim: to prevent fraud. Rudi Schneider, renowned for his apparent psychic powers, was born in the Austrian town of Braunau in 1908. Many leading scientists from around Europe attended his seances. They were all impressed with the strange phenomena observed.
Rudi has never been caught in fraud. During the entire history of psychical research, there were only 2 mediums who have never been actually caught. That was D.D. Hume in the 19th century, Rudi Schneider in the 20th century.
Harry organized Rudi to London in 1929 to be stringently tested at his National Laboratory for Psychical Research.
Most mediums of the time really didn't like the idea of taking part in research where they would actually be controlled and there would be an attempt to eliminate normal explanations. But that wasn't the case with Rudi. He was fine about the idea of Price imposing whatever controls he wanted to find out what was really going on.
So when Price tested Rudi Schneider, he had a great way of telling whether the medium or any of the sitters that could also be stooges or in on it were breaking away from the circle. So obviously if you everybody has to hold hands. If you break away, you can move things in the dark. Now the way that he would do it was to get everyone to wear special gloves and pass an electric current around the circle. Then if anybody was cheating and breaking away from the circle, a bulb would light up in the dark, which was fantastic.
Mrs. Pearson, could you put your glove on properly, please? Thank you.
The seances of Rudi Schneider proved sensational.
Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Despite the conditions laid down by Harry Price, tables shook, bells rang, and objects floated into the air.
Hold tight.
Was this absolute proof of the spirit world?
As we look back now, we can see that Harry Price's work with Rudi Schneider was really a conversion experience for him. There was Harry Price, the magician, a member of the Magic Circle, a man who knew how to eliminate fraud. And he tried his best with Schneider. He tried everything he could think of to try and stop the man cheating. But still the phenomena occurred. And because of that, he was converted. He said, this is the genuine thing. People can really produce paranormal phenomena.
Harry's investigation turned Rudi into a psychic superstar, a press sensation. Everyone was talking about them. Psychics sought Harry out. They wanted the Harry Price seal of approval.
There were several great ages for mediumship and interest in spiritualism. And curiously, they always happen after major wars. The First World War was catastrophic for many families. Also, for the first time, their sons, their brothers were just disappearing. They were just getting a note in the post saying, your son has died and been buried. Now, there was no mourning process, though grieving was cut short. There was so much suffering, but it had to come out, and it came out with an obsessive interest in spiritualism and mediumship, and this was ripe for exploitation, which is certainly what happened.
In 1931,
ghosts are made of.
Imagine you're sitting there and there's your dad in front of you. You can touch his hand, you can talk to him, he can talk to you. That is really amazing, very amazing. That's the sort of thing Helen Duncan used to do, and many, many people were touched by her mediumship.
Helen Duncan was born in Perthshire, Scotland in 1898. She was a working-class woman who became a spiritual medium and made money from her seances, reuniting dead spirits with loved ones.
Harry was desperate to find his own materialization medium, and he did find someone in the form of Helen Duncan.
Harry Price did investigate Helen Duncan, who was a well-known medium of her time, who produced not only mental effects, that is to say messages from spirits, so-called clairvoyance, and physical effects in dark seances.
Harry didn't believe that Helen Duncan was a genuine medium.
Before the seances with Harry Price, Helen Duncan was always searched. So it was something of a mystery how she could produce this drapery. But there were theories as to how she concealed it, but I think they're too disgusting to discuss in detail.
Well, one thing about Helen Duncan's ectoplasm was that it would always be accompanied by a very strange odour, and this was something that led Harry Price to think that she was regurgitating the cloth.
I believe that she was a genuine medium. That's how she started off, a genuine medium. As time went on, because of the pressure, because of the expectation, she did give in to the temptation and the expectation by using cloth, muslin and other devices.
I think if you look very carefully at those photographs from Helen Duncan's seances, the manifestations, the ghosts appear to be a little less than entirely convincing. I think this is probably something to do with the flash photography. Maybe in the dark they were a little...
Okay, I want to stop it there because, again, I guarantee you Steve is going to say the same thing, and probably some of you guys in the chat. We've seen these pictures. We flipped through the books, and when we saw a picture, we were just captivated by it. The brown lady coming down the stairs, the figure, the picture of the whatever that thing was that was standing next to the altar in whatever church that is. All the different pictures that we saw when we were kids that have been around for decades. Obviously, these are some of those pictures, and I never thought these were real. I don't know what in the world I was thinking when I was a kid. When I'm like 9 or 10 and I'm looking at this and I'm reading the book and I'm going, okay, I can't believe people would be so stupid as to believe this or to take any of this seriously. How bad was this back in the day? I can remember thinking that as a kid, laying on the floor in the living room with the book, and I couldn't believe anybody fell for it then. What's your thoughts? The same, right?
Yeah,
Steve?
the same. Even as a child, I thought, well, what is this? Like Borley Rectory and some of those things. That's different. Like you said, there's a feeling there that you don't get with this clown show here. That's paper mache. That's a Halloween mask or something with a shawl over it.
So much so, and it's gauze, cheesecloth, yeah. Gauze. They're saying that you have all these fine gentlemen that won't tell you that they were saying that she was shoving it up, or what.
Yeah.
And somehow pulling it up through her shirt. They were saying that, of course they would never admit such a thing. They were saying that she was throwing it up and regurgitating it, hence the smell of bile or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how she was doing it. I don't want to know how she was doing it. The thing I'm pointing out is, even as a child, laying in my mom's fringed doggone throw carpet, I can remember having to straighten that damn fringe. How many people had to do that for their mom? The colonial times, when you're straightening the fringe around it. Never mind. So, and looking at those now, there was a difference to me, and maybe perhaps for you too, Steve, of seeing pictures like this, and probably they'll show you more of her sitting there. And there was a couple other mediums too, and they've got it like draped over them. They've got it coming down out of the ceiling. They've got the trumpets floating and all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that Harry Price was trying to dispel, so he would put this woman through all kinds of stuff to try to prove that she was, and like that one lady said, toward the end, she kind of leaned a little bit more towards it. She wanted to keep the attention, and she wound up being called, found a fake, and she did some time for it, some hard time. But my point is, I paid you whatever it was back then, the cost, what were mediums getting back then, $5? I paid you my money. I'm sitting there. I want to talk to my loved one. And this paper mache gauze creature shows up. I'm going to talk to that and think it was my ex-husband.
Nah, I don't think so.
So, again, why did it get so much play? That's the question. All right, continuing on. There's a little more left.
A little more convincing. They look a little bit like blow-up dolls covered in cloth. You've got to remember that people were set up to expect something supernatural, and they would latch onto these vague images in the dark as their loved ones, which is not particularly flattering for those loved ones. But nonetheless, people would see them as absolutely what they weren't.
The photographs that Harry Price took seemed to be very clearly photographs of ordinary material, which you could see was woven. And you could see the folds and the hem, things like that.
So what he suggested was they X-ray Helen Duncan. At that point, she becomes furious. She bursts out of the lab, runs onto the street. They go out, they bring her back into the lab, they X-ray her, there's nothing to be found. And so Price assumes that somehow she's got rid of the cheesecloth. Harry Price's suspicions about Helen were later supported because in 1944 she was arrested during a séance and charged with being a fraudulent medium.
There you go.
Now there's still a huge amount of debate about the trial and the evidence, but the bottom line was she was found guilty and sentenced to 9 months.
There you go. So that's the Helen Duncan story, and I had to bring it up when we're talking about hoaxes and fakes. And again, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that the Philip experiment was a hoax in any way. I'm saying we were kind of hoaxed because I think that over time it morphed into it's probably proved its point when it wanted to start, because it definitely manifested into its own creature, which is totally different than Philip or any ghost. It was this clinical study that somehow proved that, all of us that have seen ghosts are just hallucinating, and we've created it out of our own minds. And yet again, I think the ghost just stood up and said, look, I don't care what these people are doing with their cheesecloth and their table tipping and they're making up history and stories and burning witches at the stake and all this other mess. I'm a damn ghost, and I don't know what's going on. I'm not even sure if I'm dead. All I know is that I was here 1 minute and I'm still here, but nobody's talking to me anymore. And then these jerks walk in, and the next thing I know, I'm banging on the table and I'm still stuck in purgatory. And I'm expelling all my energy, and they're making promises they can't keep, and then they just go home. And I'm still here wandering around in this moldy old damn basement. That's the part that gets me.
Yeah.
But so there's Harry Price. He's trying to prove. I don't know what Harry Price was trying to do. I think Harry Price was trying to stay in the headlines. And I think he had a love for the magic of it, and a little of the Houdini thing, really trying to prove there's a little something going on here. Maybe trying to communicate with the dead. Maybe if he got lucky. I don't know. I think he was serious with the Borley. Do you think that there's anybody in this chat that's not familiar with what we're talking about when we say Borley Rectory? What if I showed him? I could show him a little quick trailer.
Show him a little clip, yeah.
I'd show him a little clip. All right, I highly recommend this if you have not seen it. It is now free on YouTube. I hope you get it wherever your abode may be. But this is a 2018. A group got together and put this together. I know it won quite a few awards in a lot of the independent and some of the big movie independent movie awards. I forget what that's called, Sundance film festivals and stuff like that. But it did very well. I highly recommend it, and I don't know whether they were using AI or some other form, but it was very well done. Check it out. Here's the trailer.
Ghostly figures of headless coachmen, a nun believed to have been bricked up in the walls.
See you later, Eric.
Mysteriously.
Bye, honey.
A screaming
Love you,
girl
Eric.
at the window of the balloon room, and dragging footsteps in empty halls. The scene of the ghostly visitations is the rectory at Borley.
If any entity is present here tonight, will it please make itself known?
That was so cool. Again, so much blown out of proportion. But very well done. There you go, Borley Rectory. Look it up. You will find that on YouTube, the inner tubes, wherever you may roam or you call home. So there's that. Again, the Borley Rectory is brought up tonight because two ghost hunters had a big hand in that. It wasn't just Harry Price. It was also Peter Underwood. And we've done a huge episode on Peter Underwood where he goes to the Borley Rectory. And of course, that's no longer stands because that burnt down. But the story there being another conundrum in all of this, we face it all the time, Steve. Here's a nun that falls in love with a monk, and two religions, but of different sects. You know what I mean? Close together, but not of the same. Like they weren't both Orthodox Catholic. One was something else. So both of their sides of the religion thought that since God is love and to err is human and all that stuff, their first thought was, of course, to just kill them both. Not so they wall up the nun and bury her alive in a wall at the Borley Rectory, and I think they hung the monk, didn't they, in a tree down the road?
Yeah, not my idea of a religious organization that would.
Aren't you supposed to
throw them out of the order? So you're supposed to, yeah.
Wouldn't you think one side of that would have said, you know what, they're young, they're kids. Let's give them a good ceremony and send them off. We can spare a couple of horses. I just don't understand why. Like the first thing they go to is just kill them both in horrible manner. So they'll become ghosts, and people will be talking about it hundreds of years down the road. This is how these legends are born, out of stupidity, Steve, and just brutality and stupidity, ignorance.
Yep, indeed.
So there's that. So anyway, it's a good story. And Harry had a big hand in what he did was, I think, speaking off the cuff here, he took over the Borley Rectory after the last big the family moved out, and it kind of it stopped being functional. And I think there was multiple families that moved into the rectory there, and they had so many problems. I mean, ghost carriages running down the hallways. They had the writings on the wall. They had this one chick that I think was off her rocker anyway. She was almost batshit crazy, Mary Lincoln level nuts. I mean, the stuff that was going on there was deep, I think they had her husband was living with her and her lover until he was like 90 years old. They put him in the attic, took care of him, and started a florist or something. I can't remember. Anyway, it was wackadoo. But Harry takes it over, and he gets real serious, and he says he's going to get to the bottom of what's going down at the Borley. So he goes to the local college and puts a thing in the paper, what do you call that? The circus barker, like P.T. Barnum type of thing, and getting attention on the whole thing, builds it up, and has these kids come that are interested in parapsychology and do studies at the Borley. And I think his studies, if you read them, were much different than the Philip experiment. because they were very detailed, and it was more mundane and boring, like when they test people for ESP and they have a person sitting on one side looking at a shape and the other one calls it, and you have to do like 100 of those, and then if you didn't get more than half right, you have to do something else. I mean, it's just that kind of mundane, boring stuff. But they came out with some results, I believe. He did fun stuff too, like tied bells across the hallway and, flour on the floor stuff. So, I mean, interesting things. But he also liked to stretch the truth a little bit, and he loved to be the showman, like I said, with like doing magical tricks in the street and kind of stuff like that to gain attention. And he did something that I think is one of the creepiest things I've ever heard. Steve, do you know what I'm talking about when I talk about Jeffrey the Mongoose?
Yeah.
So I've got a little piece of that, and I think that's going to take us out tonight. But if you want to talk about hoaxes or things that were done to draw our attention in, I look at this one not in an angry way, like somebody's trying to pull the wool over my eyes, more like it's delightful in every way, because like I said, it's creepy. It's going to make your skin crawl. But it was just so innocent and
D-Rock.
just so ridiculous at the same time. D-Rock, it's so good to see you, honey. I was just thinking about you today. And in a good way. And I just think it's creepy on all levels, and it's just delicious. So I thought I would grab it for you so we can just enjoy it together, because it's so stupid. But it's Harry Price, and I think this embodies the whole thing of Harry and why we're all just wild about Harry, aren't we, Steve? Here it comes. Oh, this is just so creepy.
Of all the cases that Harry Price investigated, this is the strangest. It took place on the Isle of Man at Dawlish Cashen and involved a strange character who liked to be known as Jeff. You remember Jeff? Harry called the story The Haunting of Cashen's Gap, but people all over the world knew it by the simpler name, The Adventures of Jeff, the Talking Mongoose.
Dawlish Cashen itself is the most remote farmhouse that you can possibly imagine. It's a 40-minute walk from the nearest metalled road. You can't get a horse and a cart there at all. So there was this very isolated farmhouse with a very isolated little family in it, and a very isolated little mongoose who lived behind the skirting boards. Irving heard scratchings, which he assumed were mice or longtails, as the Manx would call rats.
Bloody rats.
Bloody that.
And when he shouted at it, a little voice would shout back using the same words.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Where are you?
Where are you?
What is your name?
Jeff.
So creepy. So creepy, Steve.
Price came to the island in 1935, and he brought with him a colleague, a fellow called R.S. Lambert.
This way, gentlemen. This is where Jeff first spoke to me. Hello? Hello? Hello, Jeff? Jeff, this is Mr. Price, the gentleman I spoke to you about.
Let me Jeff, this is Mr. Price. Could you show yourself to me?
Of course, it is possible. He may not be here right now. He likes to travel about the island, you know.
And how does he travel around the island?
He takes the bus.
Jeff was an extraordinary animal because he could travel and would travel the length and breadth of the island. And he would come back and tell the Irvings of what he had seen and of conversations he had overheard. And when the Irvings checked up on these subsequently, they found out they were quite often correct. So Jeff would travel the island. He claimed to travel riding underneath buses, which didn't go down very well with the bus drivers or the staff at Peel Bus Depot. And they decided to get at Jeff by fitting an electrified plate underneath one of the buses. And Irving heard about this and warned Jeff. And Jeff said, oh, yes, I know all about that. It's underneath bus number 81.
Jeff, the talking mongoose.
They're sabotaging, they're trapping and putting electrified plates under these buses. So Jeff, the talking mongoose, won't ride along underneath the buses to follow this guy and tell him everywhere he went that day and talk about the things he saw. This went deep, man. These people were involved in this thing. You know what I mean? This is insane and so creepy. And I'll tell you now, if something like this happened, right away, what would be the number one thing somebody would say if they went in the room? Again, did it happen? I can't tell you that. But if something like this did happen today, walk in there right away, somebody, the scratching on the walls, the answering, the mimicking back, what would they say it was? And the next thing you know, you got, you know, exorcisms and stuff going on in the place, and people think that everything that's happening to them is, you know, and then you're drawing in chicken or the egg. But this is amazing to me.
Could be a very moody fellow. Sometimes he'd disappear for weeks on end, and when he returned, he often proved to be a most unwelcome guest.
I had you talking about me to Mr. Price. I could kill you, you know. Yeah, kill you. Right where you're at.
Jeff stayed at the Irving house for some years, but in all that time only provided 3 pieces of evidence for his existence. A footprint, supposedly left by the creature, a hair from its back, and a photo taken by Mr. Irving's daughter. I see no mongoose. Do you?
When Price and Lambert got back to England, they co-authored a book, which is now very collectible, and it's called The Haunting of Cashan's Gap.
In 1947, it was reported from the Isle of Man that a farmer had shot and killed a very strange-looking creature. It was, they said, a mongoose. I wonder, was it Jeff?
It's so creepy.
Harry Price did produce the facts, but because he was such an extrovert, he upset quite a lot of people.
Harry Price is the most sensational ghost hunter of all time. He's kind of like the first Fox Mulder psychic investigator, but he was known for his relentless publicity as well. You know, whenever people do extreme publicity stunts, there's always that double-edged sword, losing credibility versus, you know, mass appeal or mass popularity.
He was something else.
The scope of Harry Price's work is incredible. He met the greatest psychics of his day and tested those who were willing. He had no hesitation in exposing those he found to be frauds, while lavishing equal praise on those he thought genuine. But how do you assess the work of a man who wrote so enthusiastically about every supernatural event he came in contact with? Whether it be a haunted house, a telekinetic girl, or even a talking mongoose called Jeff.
When I look back at Price's career, I have very mixed feelings about it. At one level, he was absolutely brilliant, a genius in getting the public involved in psychical research, and he carried out many of the most important investigations of his day. But at another level, you really don't quite know what he actually believed when he said something was genuine. Did he think that, or was that another publicity stunt? So it's very difficult to separate Harry Price the showman from Harry Price the scientist. Saying that, I still think it's a fantastic career, a colourful career, something which really took the idea of psychical research and made it this fascinating topic that was absolutely engrossing for the public.
And he was really one of the absolute pioneers of stepping away from all the mind tricks that can be played and actually looking at what was really going on.
I think he was a genuine investigator who got caught up occasionally with characters who weren't quite as genuine as he was, and I think he did play around a bit. But a genuine investigator he was, and he did an awful lot for paranormal research.
Yes, he did.
Hello, Mr. Price.
Harry Price died at his desk in 1948, and so at last he knows the answer to the eternal question, is there life after death? I wonder, is he watching us now?
I bet he is.
His obituaries were mixed, but they were also plentiful, appearing in newspapers all around the world. Harry would have liked that. Oh yeah. Good old Harry.
Good old Harry. Well, there we go. I mean...
Good stuff.
Isn't that good stuff? So you couldn't end a night on, you know, is it a hoax? Is it worth looking into? Is it worth the research? I guess the moral of the whole thing is Harry, like the man said there, the guy who played Doctor Who, I forget his name. What's his name? Is it? Put his name in the chat, guys, because you guys know him better than I do. I was never a Doctor Who fan, but I can remember my brother watched it and he thought a lot of it. So, but in that case, what he said was, you know, Harry got excited about both, you know, and he got excited about anything that came along in the supernatural, the paranormal, and he might have promoted some a little bit too much, or maybe he got caught up in some other things and maybe got with some people that he shouldn't had, but he always was consistent about going right back to the next thing and getting right back on the horse and studying and writing it down and keeping terrific records. And, you know, when he found something that was evidence, man, it was something. So it's worth looking into. And I guess what I'm saying is, in the paranormal and the supernatural, you know, celebrate the hoaxes too, you know, in a way, you know, like we're getting into that thing where we don't believe any of the videos anymore, any of the stories. And I'm really afraid to get to that point where, you know, we're not believing any of the haunted house stories and any of the things that these people might be going through. You know, what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, and then with all this AI stuff going on, it's going to get even harder, and you got to really hone your discernment to figure out what's what.
Yep. There you go. Oh, I could binge watch for 45 years. You know what? I probably could. I mean, it's been around a long time, but to me, that one always had like a lot of the science stuff, and my consciousness wasn't ready for like the quantum leaps and all that kind of thing. I think time travel was about as much as I could get around in my head, or the time slips. But I'm easing into a lot of things to just my way. I guess maybe it's cheating. It's just I just, you know, throw my hands up and go, man, it's all connected. Because every time I dig into it, I find out that that's the truth. So I'm going to assume the rest is the same, you know, that things can speak telepathically, that we can manifest tulpas for sure. I mean, whether it's Slender Man or the characters we write about, or manifest ghosts and bring them back because we're talking about them, we're connecting into the energy. We can feel them on tapes. Like I said, practice that and come back and tell me in the chat if you've achieved any kind of you're building a filter. I talk often about, we run things through our filters when we see a ghost, or we're trying to get what their feelings are, and we have to know what our base is. You start with your base and then see if your atmosphere changes, however you can bring that into your day, and practice that, because I think we're going to need it in the future, not only to discern things about the dead or the crypt, or the supernatural, but for the living too, because my gosh, being aware of your surroundings and situational awareness is definitely a tool that everybody should be working on. Steve, take us out of here, baby. What you got going on this week?
Yeah, I got more stuff coming up on missing persons and mysteries. I'm recording some new stuff. Don't have a guest for my radio show this week. If anybody'd like to volunteer, let me know.
Ghost stories?
Come on and talk. Yeah, come on and talk for an hour or two.
Everybody should just get on there and tell their favorite ghost story.
There you go. We could do that. We could do like a round robin and just come on in. If we want to set something like that up,
I'm down.
Let me know, folks. Always something going, but always good to be here.
To see that one, I liked the Quantum Leap, where he had the little box and he had his friend with him, and he'd wake up and one day he'd be a stripper in Las Vegas, and the next day he'd be a judge in some small town out in whatever, that was fun. And I think that got us into that whole being able to jump, maybe parallel universes and time and is linear and all that. But when you started getting into the Star Trek stuff, we talked a lot about it because I had an engineer that was going to MIT living with me. And then I had a man who was kind of on the other end of it. And he was a television repairman back when television's big Zenith with the tubes in it and all that kind of thing. And I got to see as a young teenager, both ends of that table, and thought, man, he's getting phased out. Here we go with technology. The fear in him, yelling about cable and not paying for TV, and this one tell him it's the future, and this kind of thing, and being in the middle of that really set me off for life. And I think it helped me also really see at a 40,000 foot view, like what they were really doing to us, going from 8-track tapes and get caught in that. And then you have to replace it with the cassettes, and then your albums, you just get all your albums, and it's this and it's that and it's that, and it's just constant, the next thing. And if you know that they're doing that to you, you kind of tap the brakes. You focus on what's most important to you and what makes your heart happy and what you're satisfied with, and enjoy what you have, and do the best. Just have the best life with what you got, man. You got to play the cards you're dealt. Some of us get lucky, but some of those people that look like they're having a good time and a good life, I'm gonna tell you something. Behind the scenes, it's all fake. People's masks fall up. Be real, be you. And if you're into the paranormal and the supernatural, that's the best way to walk into this, because you're going to have a better experience with the stuff that's around you, And I think these were great teachers in all that, Those people, the Philip experiment, they were down. They thought that they had, gone through something, and they came away from that with a different attitude and an open mind, but you just can't use it to say, or to squash somebody's story and say all ghosts are manifested out of your own thought, because the only thing it proved was that when people get together in that much polyester, there was probably
something bad's gonna happen.
Something bad's gonna happen, But anyway, I love you, my friend. My love to Nick and Holden. He's absolutely beautiful.
And Chris Van Poel, I'm not on the Rumble, but email me, and I'd love to have you on the show. Anybody else that'd like to join and tell some stories.
And thank you to everybody. I got my Rumble today, and it was just come right on time. So those of you that have put your tips and stuff in Rumble, whether it was $1, whether it was a membership or anything else that you support this channel. I promise it goes right into paying for all the different things that I got to have to get this out there. I am talking to Rumble now. They sent me, I think we're on our 11th email, and they finally sorted out what was going on, and then they didn't answer me, and I haven't heard from them in 3 days. So I got to get back and start that again to see whether or not I can play the movie on Tuesday night. I'm trying for you guys, because everybody around me is doing that, and they're setting it for no monetization, just to show. And it seems to be okay. And I got to figure out, because they don't tell you why they cut it off. They just cut it off in the middle. You guys think it's me and say, Cisco passed out or something, but it wasn't me. This time it wasn't me. So I'm still trying to figure it out. They're wonderful people. They made sure I got, the money that I got off of ad revenues and stuff like that. So it's very cool. And it all goes right back into the system. And I'm going to keep on fighting for you, because, if other channels are doing it, they got to tell me why I can't, and maybe I'm clicking the wrong box or something. We're still working on it. And I love you guys, because I want to be in there at least until I can get moved and everything. And then I can do more of the show that I want to. I might be on here 5 nights a week. But for now, because of my household, I can only do it twice. And that was a way that we could be together in the middle of the week. And they kind of took it away from us. And I'm kind of mad about that. So if I can't do that, I'll come up with something else. Okay? I don't quit. I love y'all. And y'all take care. Steve, I love you. And we'll see if we can get something together for Wednesday. See if we can come up with a ghost story or 2.
All right. Sounds good. You pop my email address on there, the Steve Stockton one, so the people on Rumble can see it if you put it on the screen.
I'm glad, because gosh, when it just cuts like that and I have no way of contacting anybody, I'm like, it's not me. I didn't do it. Last time it was just pure meanness, Steve. We got all the way to the last 10 minutes of the daggum movie and they cut it off. And I'm like, okay, that's just mean. That's just mean. And none of these people know how it ended, because there was like 5 or 6 people in there that hadn't seen it before. And I'm like, dadgummit, that's just rotten. So we'll see what we can do to fix it. All right, what are we going to do tonight? We're going to dance our way out of here. Listen, I cannot overstress it. I love you too. Cannot overstress it enough. You need to ground. You need to focus. You need to be happy. Don't get caught up in the propaganda. Just ride the wave, baby. Everything's going to be fine. I think we're coming into a whole new era of the sun's coming out. The sun's coming out. I see it on the horizon. I love y'all. Till then, we're going to dance the blues away. Good night, everybody. Good night, Steve.
Good night.
Go ahead, Dick Bell. Y'all be good humans.